Hey YouTube, what's going on? Just wanted to update you guys on a cool thing that is going on in my aquarium right now, and as well as make an aquarium update because this is really cool, honestly, what I'm about to show you, and I will explain it because there isn't a lot of info about this depending on the what you type in. So basically, if you type this in on Chat GPT, um, you will find the information. If you type this in online, you will not find the information because nobody knows what the heck they're talking about. If you go on like Reddit or forums or anything like with what you typed in, nobody will know what you're talking about. So you have to type in a certain way to find the information. So this video is basically the simplified version of, okay, I have a snail with this issue. What am I looking at? You know, and this is the easier way of finding that information for you guys. So, anyways, so I've been watching my snail for a couple months now, and it's not really growing a new shell. It doesn't really need a new shell. It's not getting worse. It's not, it's not growing a new or extra shell, or if it is, it's not, growing a newer or different colored shell. Essentially, basically, when snails fall, they break their shell occasionally, and that snail grows its shell from the tip of the shell opening all the way back. So you will see new shell growing occasionally if the snail does break the shell around that area, but it won't repair itself unless it's on the tip of the shell opening, and not anywhere behind there, because anywhere behind there it won't repair itself. Anywhere on the shell opening, on the tip of the shell opening, it will repair itself. So and this is a really cool thing. When snails do this, it's definitely healthier for them. And if you don't see it, it's not necessarily a bad thing either, because technically the snail is still living. If it's still eating, generally that's a good thing. But if the snail is also growing a new shell, that means it's growing a thicker shell. That means it's growing a more stronger shell for the environment that it's in, and it's able to repair damage if needed. So it's always good to see that, because you have a healthy snail on your hands. And the interesting part about certain snails, including nerites, specifically nerites, is they have the ability to change their shell with the pH that they're in. So the shell that you guys are seeing now is this. So this is a shell that basically was formed in salt water, brackish water, and this is the design that came out in a brackish water environment. Now, this snail is probably most likely in fresh water and is growing this design. So this design is basically depending on what the snail is eating, and it depends on what the snail basically, here, let me read this to you because this is the best way I can explain it. So basically it says Nerite snail shell changes, including shifts in pattern, color, and texture, are common and often driven by changes in water parameters, diet, and maturity. Now, these snail, depending on the snail's growth, obviously the shell gets wider, the snail gets bigger, So the design is going to change over time naturally. But when it comes to the specific size or design of the shell, that has to do with obviously what I just read. And it can basically expect it to change dramatically over time if you do add in a lot not a lot pH, add in a lot of calcium. And it's not a bad thing as much as it is it. So basically, what I'm trying to say is, if you're buying the snail for looks, expect it to change color. If you add in food with that's more calcium driven, then this could happen. If you do not, you're basically, so with Nerites, it's a 50-50 chance, essentially, that you're going to lose the original shell that it came in now. With black ones, but this only does happen, by the way, with specific pattern Nerites, and I will show you currently. So the design change will only affect, so if you do not want your snail to change its design and you're set on, let's say, a certain design, like that design, or this design, or this design, or that's not looking good on that snail, but anyways, so if you're basically set on, let's say, this design, right, and you want to keep that design, do not get this snail, because there is a probably, from what I read, 70% chance that your snail is going to look something like that. That is basically what your snail is going to look like if it gets good calcium. And that's not, so if you're okay with this as well, so like if you're okay with this new design, that design is going to change, being that you're feeding it more calcium, you're giving it more food. It's not going to grow the same that it would. So basically what I'm trying to say is, don't be set on the design if you want striped Nerite snails, because that design is going to change. Now, what I mean by striped Nerite snails, I mean like these types of snails. So zebra Nerites, tiger Nerites, Nerite snail combo, specifically driven from this racer Nerites. So this would also happen with these guys. This would happen with B grade snails as well. But a lot of times, like this all will be going through the back of the, oh, that's cheap actually. So this all will be going through the back of the shell. So any of this, like, you can see some of these are, damaged, or most of them are damaged. But if you look at you want to look at the front of the shell. Like, I would not probably buy something like this, but obviously, if aquatic arts, it's random with what you get. So, but if you want to help an animal out and you're a big animal lover, and you want to raise a snail, help a snail, then sure, have a snail of shell erosion on it, and it will look something like this, where it's not as damaged in the front, and it all the damage gets pushed back. And then, depending, I'm not a big snail guy. I don't do research on snails, but I'm pretty sure, depending on how young the snail is how much that design will change the snail's color. Mine is apparently really young. So mine will look something like this, but you're not going to know because it depends on your shell. It depends on how much the snail changes over time in its environment in your aquarium. If you change places, this will happen. So this is natural for the snail, but like if you're buying the snail, depending on the type of shell, definitely expected to change over time. If you're buying it because of allergy, you shouldn't run into any issues. This is not a killer for snails. This is just the fact that you have different pH, different food, and different nutrients in your aquarium that the snail is getting that's causing that to change its shell color and design. And obviously it's going to look something like this. But I believe it does, the more your snail grows, the more you provide for it. I think that this will become less and less, obviously, and then it will eventually curl up into a new shell, give or take, depending on the snail, depending on its environment, depending on, if this actually does happen, but it would actually make sense. But every other site, when they do research, says no, it's going to look like that. So if you see a snail like this, guys, like I said, it's natural. It's not going to hurt the snail. It's not going to hurt the environment. You're not doing anything wrong. It's just that you're giving it more calcium, different types of foods, and this is what the shell looks like with the food you're feeding it. It has nothing to do with the health of your tank or the health of your specific water. So if your snail does this, it doesn't mean it's bad. It doesn't mean you're hurting the snail. It just means it's adapting to its environment. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your night.